Our second speaker for this evening will be Sam Allison. He is a Tyndale Seminary student in his third year towards his MDiv and is on track toward becoming a registered psychotherapist. He has been working with Susan at Rock of Peace Counseling since September, and while he helps individuals, couples, and families with relationships and mental health issues, he has a particular focus on anger and addictions, and anger will be the focus of his talk this evening. Whether we realize it or not, anger is a part of everyone's lives. What we do with it is where there is a wide range of decisions. In a year of challenges and difficulties, the emotional toll this has had on us can't be understated. Anger is a normal and healthy response to many of these experiences and emotions, but learning how to understand, manage, and navigate anger is a part of how to come out of this pandemic mentally stronger and in a good state. And so I would like to invite Sam to present for us this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Caleb. I'm certainly looking forward to being with you all here. Well, I want to thank everyone for having me on. I'm looking forward to sharing about this concept of understanding anger and how it affects us all. So I just wanted to share and start off by just getting a little bit of a development or a framework for understanding anger, and there's definitely different perspectives. Some of you may feel like you don't get angry and it's not really part of your life, and I have to admit that at times it's felt like that for me as well, until I started to pay a little bit more attention to it. Some of you also may start to realize that it is part of what you're experiencing, and you may even be having trouble navigating that and understanding what that looks like and what to do with it. And you may even be at a spot where you've thought something needs to change in my life. And regardless of where you're coming from tonight, I do hope that there's something here for all of you as we dive into this idea of understanding anger. I don't know if some of you have seen this movie, Inside Out. I love it. It's the first movie I saw with my now wife, and I'll try not to do any spoilers tonight, but anger is this little character here in the red, and all these 5 characters represented here are different emotions. And to skip to the end, and really I think what the purpose and the vision behind this movie is realizing and understanding the way that all these emotions, some that are more difficult than others, like anger, like the other characters here, sadness and fear and disgust, the way that they're all important in how we're created as human beings. I do want to acknowledge that this year has been difficult. I know it's been said a lot. It feels maybe like it's been overused, but I also do want to acknowledge that there are challenges that we face just in our day-to-day life that have now been compounded with the struggles that we've had with COVID. I'm sure that we just be experiencing a lot of different emotions. There's a lot of different possibilities of things that are out there that could be difficult. It's been a struggle of not being able to do some of the things that you normally enjoy doing, maybe feeling like a loss of control, or having to listen to someone else tell you what you cannot do depending on the stages that we're in. It may be difficult for you to find the information that you find as reliable. Sometimes it feels like there's competing information that's out there. It's sometimes we kind of struggles with relationships in our lives. I know there's times, especially now, it feels like more so than ever. It's difficult when we have friends that maybe share a different viewpoint than we do, and it's hard to figure out how do we navigate that relationship when that's going on. We also just have a lack of community right now. We're created as relational beings. We're created to be together, and while we've been able to try to be creative in how we do community, we've certainly had to adjust, and all these things have compounded in a way that's made this year difficult. And while you may have different emotions, I know, at least for me personally, anger has certainly been one of those. I think one of the important things to do is realize the difference between anger versus aggression. I do want to start off and just mention that anger is not a bad thing. Sometimes you can feel like it's bad. Sometimes we can feel it's unwanted. But what I really want from tonight is for us to really realize and understand the role and the purpose that anger has in our life. You may be angry due to many different things. It could be due to a past hurt or traumatic experience. It could be due to depression, or it could just be related to an unfair or an unjust situation that you've been put into. And I do want to acknowledge that anger is a feeling and not an action. It's a felt emotional state that we experience, and so anger in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's there. Again, it serves a purpose, but the struggle and the difficulty is that anger can sometimes lead to aggression, which is an action and not a feeling. And at times we can maybe believe that aggression is physical, but it can take on other shapes, other styles. It could be displayed verbally or emotionally. And what we really want to do is manage and avoid getting to the point where our aggression comes out of our anger. We have, and there's this chart here of emotions and thoughts and behaviors. These are all related. They're all connected to each other, but they are separate. And so one of the things I want to acknowledge is that your emotions are valid, your thoughts are valid, but the decision that you make around your behavior is important. And we do want to make sure that that any behavior that we exert as a result of our anger is managed and displayed in the correct way. One of the other distinctions I think that's important to make is just this difference between selfish anger and righteous anger. As I've said, anger is normal and acceptable. It's a normal reaction, especially to some things that are unfair and unjust. Some of these things that we've seen with neglect and abuse, and these things can make us angry. I think the important distinction to make is the idea of realizing that selfish anger is what you want, when what you want or desire is beyond your reach, when what your anger is doing is serving a purpose for yourself, a purpose that is self-seeking, is looking to put yourself ahead. Righteous anger, though, is this idea of serving the purpose of protecting or serving others. And I know for myself, even one of the things that I've found difficult and something that's actually made me angry throughout this pandemic is seeing how my wife, who is a frontline worker, some of the disrespect that she's been given in her position where she's serving. And in this case, while sometimes there is a combination of selfishness and righteousness in our anger, I do feel like this is more along that righteous anger line of really wanting to protect, in this case, my wife. One of the things that's you may have heard before is a thing that people have said is the idea of anger being a secondary emotion. Behind the anger is another emotion. So while you are experiencing anger, there is something that you experience first. You may not be aware of it. Sometimes it feels like when you have a situation, it immediately impacts you. But there is something that you feel before that. You may be hurt by what someone else has said, or disappointed in someone else's behavior, or maybe you feel like you've reached just this breaking point where you can't take it anymore. And these are all times when maybe your anger starts to come out and starts to move towards aggression. Some of these emotions that you may be feeling, maybe afraid or attacked or offended, or any of these ones that I've listed here or others. And usually what happens when we're feeling this anger is that it typically points to an unmet emotional need. This is a physiological or mental requirement that we have that usually centers around basic feelings like love or fear. When these things are unmet, these primary emotions start to appear, and we start to feel those. One of the things that I say to people that I'm working with that struggle with anger is this idea of, what do I need to do to be okay right now and in the long term? Sometimes we have a reaction that comes out of our anger that may feel justified. If someone punches you or someone says something mean to you or whatever it may be, there may be times where it feels just to respond in the way that you do, to respond back, to retaliate, an eye for an eye. But we want to be able to make sure that what we do doesn't have consequences either, both right now as well as in the long term. Figuring out, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm okay right now and in the long term. You are responsible for how you respond. You're responsible for your tone. You're responsible for your volume, and your actions. And this is no matter what someone else may do. I think that one of the things, as I was thinking about this and started to do some research, is the Bible certainly actually has things to say about anger. And we actually realize that there's several mentions of the word anger attached to God, particularly in the Old Testament. So what I want to do is just look at a few of these verses that are there, that are present. We see a lot of emotions from the Proverbs and Psalms, and this makes sense considering the literature that they are, with the Psalms being a poetic genre, and Proverbs being wisdom, and you can see how these come out in these passages. Here, Proverbs 14:29 says, "Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly." Proverbs 15:1 here, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." And Psalm 86:15, "But you, Lord, are compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness." And you can see here in Psalm 86:15 the similar nature of what it's saying in Proverbs here, this idea of being slow to anger, who is patient. It's not saying to not get angry, it's not saying to avoid that, but it's saying that this is something that is slow, is not something that instantly happens, something that has been brewing, but is not responded in a quick-tempered way, something that avoids wrath. I also wanted to highlight Ephesians 4:26. It says here, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry." And you can see there in the bolded passage, part of the passage, this line, "In your anger, do not sin." And it actually, if you look in some translations, it actually references this verse in Psalm 4, verse 3 and 4 here say, "But know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him. Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent." In closing, I just want to talk a little bit about navigating anger and try to give all of you some practical tools as we leave tonight. One of the practical tools and one of the first tools I give most clients is breathing exercises. And there's different types of breathing exercises. One of the ones in particular that I use is the idea of box breathing, and this is a breathing that follows a specific rhythm that allows for you to take deep, calculated breaths, and allows for you to calm down and slow down, calming your body down. Journaling is another tool that you can use. Another thing allows you to slow down and to have an outlet for some of these things that you're struggling with. The last thing that I wanted to highlight is this idea of taking a time out. Sometimes you need to walk away from a situation for a period of time, and that's important. The hope is that you can do this in a calm and positive way, not in a way that's storming off or giving someone the silent treatment for an extended period of time. The idea is that you want to search for and take the time to have this managed silence, this idea of a productive self-imposed timeout. In this moment, you can leave and count to 10. And what you want to do is ask yourself a couple questions. first you want to look into yourself and say, what is going on beneath your anger? What is happening there? Um, and the other question is, what may be happening inside the person that you're angry with, or even the situation that you're angry with? This time will allow you for you to come back well, re-engage and resolve conflict that you may be facing. This time can increase both your self-awareness as well as the awareness for others. As in summary, I want to capture that anger is not a bad thing, but it can have negative consequences. So it's important to take time to understand what your emotions and thoughts and behaviors are telling you. Breathing, journaling, and timeouts are all valid and helpful ways to navigate anger. And I think one of the key things is being able to mindfully embrace tough emotions rather than stuffing them down. And hopefully, with these things, we can start making steps towards coming out of this pandemic healthier than when we started. And just in closing, there's also some resources here. Susan mentioned in her presentation, her book here, this Over the Walls of Anger Into Each Other's Arms. I certainly highly do recommend it. I'm not even being paid to say that. I think this is a fantastic resource. It's really well done, well explained. And so I think that's certainly a great resource, as are these other books. And there's also a podcast here, the Angry Christian Podcast. But that's all I have, and thanks for listening.